All right, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Bava Metzia Daf Yud. We're starting about 10 lines down on Yud Amud Aleph at the words Amar Shmuel. To take us back to the difficult daf we learned yesterday, we were analyzing a Mishnah on Yud Beis Amud Beis. That Mishnah was dealing with a Metzia, but the Metzia that a person found was a Shtar Chov. And according to the Shita of the Chachamim, we don't care if the document indicated if there was achrayas nechasim or not, no matter what, lo yachzir. And today, we're going to begin analyzing the Shita of the Rabbanon. The Rabbanon were of the opinion, we're starting on Yud Daled Amud Aleph, about 10 lines down. Did I say the wrong thing? No. Yud Daled Amud Aleph, about 10, 11 lines down at Amar Shmuel. So now we're going to analyze the sheet of the Rabbanon and why it is that they said that if you find the shtar chov, that whether or not achrayas nechasim, there are properties that support that shtar chov, that back up that shtar chov, why is it that it's never going to be returned? So Amar Shmuel, my time at the Rabbanon, why is it that the rabbis, the sheet of the Rabbanon and the Mishnah on Yud Beis Mid Beis, why do they say that no matter what, whether or not there's achrayas lo yachzir? The Gemara says, Savre, the rabbis hold achrayas to soferhu. If achray, the language here is a little enigmatic. We really should say, no matter what happens, we always assume there's achrayas in the shtar. And if it's missing in the shtar, that's a to sofer. And therefore, because there's achrayas in the shtar, we're therefore concerned that if you give it back to the malveh, so then he'll go and collect it. And that may not be fair at the end of the day. So no matter what, that's why the Rabbanan say in the Mishnah, Daf Yud Beis, Amud Beis, they say no matter what, we do not return a shtar chov that one found. Amar le Rava bar Isi, the Rav Idi bar Oven, Umi Amar Shmuel Hachi. I could prove to you, says Rava bar Isi, a very unique name, at least to my memory. I don't recall seeing that. Maybe we did. Sometimes I gloss over names, but Isi is not Isi with the samach. It says Isi with the saf. Anyways, the Gemara says Shmuel has a shita that's different. Amar Shmuel, Shevach, Shafar, V'shibud, Tzarech Limlach. There are three things that require conversation with a sofer. The first two have to do with improvements. We're not going to discuss them now. But one of them is shibud, whether or not the item that you and I have between one another about a chov that I owe you, and when it comes to shibud, that's a conversation piece. So Shmuel, 2 lines ago, you just said that it's a to sofer if achrayas is missing. Over here, you're saying you need to talk to them, to the sofer about it. So you can't dance at both weddings. It doesn't work. Says the Gemara, Lema manda Omar ha lo Omar ha. Should we say that someone who one of the Amoraim, one of the Talmidim of Shmuel misunderstood? One said that Shmuel meant X, and one said that Shmuel meant Y. So the Gemara says no, and the Gemara gives a beautiful and clean distinction, one that we'll have a raya for in a moment, and that is as follows: a third of the way down, lo kasha. There is no stira between the two shitas of Shmuel. One Shmuel says that it's always assumed that achrayas is included in the shtar. And one sheet of Shmuel says that it's discussed. When is the difference? Lo kasha. Kan bishtar halva. To lo yoiv inish zuze bichdi. When it comes to a loan, no one is going to lend out money without securing their loan. And therefore, every document that has to do with a halva, by definition, has achrayas built into it. Namely, if I lend you $1 million, it will be against the backdrop of one of your properties. Just like the bank does, right? The bank can take my house if I stop paying. Why? That's their security. That's how it works. I commit to paying X amount per month. Great. What if I do a bad job? They foreclose on my property and they take the property from me. So they always have security. That's true with every loan because lo yav inish zuze bichdi. I'm not going to lend you my money unless there's a way that I can secure my loan, and therefore that's done with achrayas. But Khan, in the other shita where we're discussing that where we said that we have to talk to the sofer, Khan b'mekachu memkar. Da'avidin zavin ara liyome. I might agree to make a sale for 1 day with no lien. Big deal. It's just for a day. I'll run the risk. There, I'm willing to gamble a little bit more. Therefore, there's no stira between the two shitas of Shmuel. The shita of Shmuel that says that we always have achrayas, that's in a case of a loan, because no one would ever have a loan without securing their loan. And the other case is talking about mekachul memkar, where sometimes one wouldn't mind not having something backing up their purchase. And this actually played out. Ki hahid avuha bar ihi. This person, avuha bar ihi, zovin alisa me'achte. He rented an attic from his sister. Actually, he purchased an attic from his sister. He bought the second floor of a 2-flat. Asa Baal Chov. And then one of the Baalei Chov of the sister owed money. And the Baal Chov came to the attic and said, sorry, buddy, I'm taking this property. Your sister owes me money. So let's review. I'm Phil. I have a sister named Rebecca. Rebecca sells me the second floor of her house. And then really Rebecca owes money to someone else. That Baal Chov comes up to the second floor and says, Phil, sayonara, this is mine. Your sister owes me money. I don't care that she sold it to you. Done. So Asalakame Demar Shmuel. So I was upset and I went to go ask a Shaila to Shmuel. Amar Le, Shmuel said to me, Kasva loach achrayis. Did he write achrayis for you? Did she write achrayis for you that your purchase is backed up, that in the event that one of her Baalei Chov come to take the property so that she'll pay you back? So Amar Le lo, I say no, she did not do that. So says the Gemara, Amar Le im kain zil l'shlama. Go be with yourself. Goodbye. You're done. Shalom al Yisrael. You have nothing to say here. You have no claim. Amar Le, wait 1 second. Hold on. Shmuel. V'hamarhu de Amar acharei so soferhu. But you said at the beginning of today's blot, Rebbe, Shmuel, you said that acharei, when it's missing from a star, is always a to sofer. Amar Le, Shmuel responded, and now we see this isn't just a discussion about Shmuel. This is Shmuel talking about his own shita. Hani mili, when is it that I say that the lack of achrayis in a shtar is a to sofer? That's only true b'shtare halva. Aval b'shtare mekach umemkar lo. The avid inish tezavin ar liyome. Super clean first part of the Gemara. 2 shitas of Shmuel. Shmuel says that our Mishnah on Yud Beis and Yud Beis, when it says that Bain, whether or not we're talking about a document with achrayis or without, we always assume there's achrayis. That must be talking about a halva. But when it comes to a mekach umemkar, Shmuel holds that it's possible that there's a conversation piece where someone might be willing to make a purchase and lay out all the cash without having so much security backing them up. Beautiful. Now we're going to learn 2 pieces of Gemara that are, they're kind of like halachic stories, as it were. 8 lines from the bottom, Yud Daled Amud Aleph. Amar Abaye. Abaye teaches the following memra. Ruvain shemachar sada l'shimon be'achrayis. I sell you a field be'achrayis. That means if I'm Ruvain and you're Shimon, if I sell you a field and one of my Baalei Chov takes the field from you, I'll replace the field that he took from you. That's what achrayis means. So that means you're good. If you buy from me, you can trust me. And if someone takes your field, I will pay you back. So that's what happened. Uva Baal Chov de Ruvain, someone to whom I owed money, they showed up to Shimon's property. I sold to Shimon. The Katarif Lemine, and somebody chopped up Shimon's property. So I'm Ruvain, I sold you, Shimon, a property, and Levi, who was one of my Baalei Chov, came around and took the property that I gave you. So I'm on the hook. So the halacha is dinahu de'azil Ruvainu mishtoi dina b'hadei. Ruvain's allowed to get himself involved in the whole process. He can either try and prevent the Levi from taking it from Shimon. He can do whatever he needs to do. Levi, the Baal Chov, is not allowed to say to Ruvain, La val dvarim didiat. This has nothing to do with you. Ruvain sold to Shimon. Levi took from Shimon that which was owed to him. Ruvain goes to Levi and says, wait, don't take this property. Levi's like, yeah, I have nothing to do with you. That's not correct. He cannot say to him, La bal dvarim didiat. Why not? To Amar Le, Ruvain, the seller, will say back to Levi, the Baal Chov, the mafkis minei, alai didi hadar. That if you, Levi, take a property from Shimon, whose headache is that? It's Ruvain's headache that he has to pay it back. And therefore, Levi is not allowed to exclude Ruvain from being involved in negotiations. 5 lines from the bottom, another version of this statement of Abaye. Ika de amre afilu shelo be'achrayis nami. Even if Ruvain sold a field without achrayis, the same thing would be true, that Ruvain is allowed to involve himself. To Amar Le, lo nichali de lehavi l'Shimon tarumo salai. I don't want Shimon to say I'm never going to buy from Ruvain again. I don't want Shimon to say that about me. And because of that, I could negotiate anyways, even though there's no achrayis. Even though that really if Levi took the property from Shimon, because I'm Ruvain and I owe Levi money, even though technically I have no skin in the game, because at the end of the day, this property is not achroi. I would not have to pay back Shimon. Still, I don't want Shimon to have a bad name, and therefore Ruvain's allowed to be involved in the transaction. Another statement from Abaye, 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Abaye, Ruvain shamochar sada l'Shimon shelo be'achrayis, quite similar. V'yatzu ala asikin, and there were asikin that came out. What does that mean? Rashi on the bottom line of the page, Dibur Hamaschil Asikin, Oririn. These are people who are complaining. So what happened? I sell a field to Shimon and people say, that's not your field. That's not yours. So, up until the time that Shimon makes a chazaka on the property that Ruvain sent him, no problem. No problem. Shimon, I sold this to Shelo Be'achrayis up until the point that you are machzik. I know there are Orerin, there are Asikin, and because of that, if you want to back out of the sale, no problem at all. However, on the top line of Yudal Amid Beis, Mi shehichzik ba eno yachol lachzor ba. But once the flow of events is like this, Ruvain sold to Shimon or was selling to Shimon, the Asikin, the Orerin came out and complained. But if you knew about that, Shimon, and you still went through with the chazaka, so then eno yachol lachzor bo. The amarle chaysa de kitri sabris v'kiblis. This basket of knots you knew about and you accepted. Namely, you knew people were complaining about the property. You knew there were orerin. So then why did you go make a chazaka? If you weren't sure that this was a good idea, back out. You have every right to back out before the chazaka. So therefore, if you, Shimon, with full knowledge that there are asikin, that there are orerin, and you still make the chazaka that the property becomes yours, so that's your fault and not mine, and then you cannot back out anymore. And then even if it ends up going to Bezdin, and the orerin were correct, the asikin were correct, and really the field that Ruvain sold to you, Shimon, was a scam, and it really belonged to Yehuda or to Chaim or to Meir, this is too bad for you. You shouldn't have done that. This was all shelo be'achrayis. Once you make a chazaka, you're done for. Says the Gemara, me'em asayhi chazaka. What is considered to be a chazaka? Says the Gemara, michidayish amitzri. Once you are dayish on the border. Rashi, 3rd line, dibur maschal michidayish amitzri, metakein gvule hasadeh u magbeim. Once you fix up the borders and you raise them, this is now your new property. V'chule, v'chule, v'chule. That's considered to be a kinyan. And v'ika de amre, there are some who say that this is true, this parameter about before chazaka and after chazaka, that it's true afilu be'achrayis nami. To amar le, ach v'tarfecha v'ashalim lach. You have to show the fact that it was stolen and the fact that I gave you achrayis. You have to show that the property I gave you was taken, and then and only then will I pay you back. Now we're going to get into another sugya, a connected sugya that will take us all the way to the end of the day. We will be stopping on Tes Vav Amud Aleph about 10 lines down, very similar to how far down we went yesterday. The Gemara says 5 lines down in Yudal Amud Beis Itmar. We have a statement in the Amoraim. Hamocher sada lechaveiro v'nimtzei she'eno shelo. I'm Phil. I sell you a field. You make the purchase. But as it turns out, I sold you stolen goods. The field was never mine. I just pretended it was mine. I went up to this house. I knocked into the ground a little real estate sign, cost realty, and I sold you the house. No problem. I pretended it was mine. You wrote the check to me, and I'm a ganim. So says the Gemara, this is a machlokas. The machlokas is not whether or not I, Shimon, will get my money back. That's pashut. The question is, what about shevach? What about any improvements to the home? This is a machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Rav Amar yesh lo mos v'yesh lo shevach. Yes, you have access to the principal that you paid. You spent $300,000 on the house, $300,000 on the house, and it was really a stolen house. You get the $300,000 back. But as well, if I made any improvements to the home, I also get back the improvements. However, Shmuel, and we'll see why Shmuel says this in a moment, Shmuel Amar, ma'os yeshlo, but shevach ein lo. Yes, you do get back the principal, but even if you invested a couple $1,000s in the house, you decided to stain the wood floors, you decided to put in some crown molding, all of that you will lose. That money you don't get back. Bo mineme Rav Huna, says the Gemara, okay, Shmuel, let's test the limits of your shita. What if when we made the deal, piresh lo es hashevach mahu. If I made the deal with you and said that if for whatever reason this deal doesn't work out, not only will I pay you back the principal, but I'll also pay you back the shevach, would that be enough for you, Shmuel? And here is the Chakira with an understanding Shmuel. Do we say about Shmuel 8 lines down, Taima de Shmuel mishum de lo pirei shivcha? Maybe we would have thought that the only reason why Shmuel wouldn't pay back the shvach is because it wasn't expressly included in the deal. But vehacha, with this iteration raised by Rav Huna, perhaps hapirei shla. Okay, now that it's expressed and included, then it's perfect. O Dilma, or perhaps Tame de Shmuel, perhaps the reason, according to Shmuel, is Kevan de Lesle Karka, since really the guy doesn't own it, Mechze Kiribis. This might actually appear like ribis. Here's the transaction. Ruvain lied and sold a field to me. And then he pays me back the money that I spent, plus extra money for the shevach. In effect, what's happening? It looks like ribis. I gave the lokeach, I gave the mocher, $300,000, and he gave me back 320. The 20 is the shevach that I added to the house. This is mechze kiribis. Afal pi, that the mocher doesn't even own the property, but for the time that he had the money and the time he gave it back to me, it appears to be ribis. So that was the shiur.
Why does it have to look like ribis? You're paying for work that was done.
It's not that it is ribis, it's that it looks like ribis. It's a din derabanan as opposed to a din deoraisa. So if you are the mocher, you're a ganav. You flipped a house, you lied, and you sold it to me. You said it's mine. It really wasn't yours. Mm-hmm. I give you $300,000. I didn't like the way that you stained the floor. I paid someone $10,000 to sand and restain. So I'm really out 310. I have to give the house back. It's not my house. Mm-hmm. So you give me the 300, and Shmuel says you can't pay the 10. Why? Because look at the transaction from far away. I gave you 300. You gave me back 310. That looks like ribis.
Did something to earn.
It looks like ribis. It's not ribis deoraisa.
One thing, he won.
Correct.
Don't sale at all. Mill that stuff. So it flips to a mill.
It's not really a halva, but it's a fake halva.
You're holding my money.
That's why it's mechze kiribis.
What is it? It's a halva.
But what was my intention when I gave you the money? My intention was to make a purchase. So we don't say that it's ribis because I didn't give you a halva. I gave you, you tricked me.
Right. But the question is, why am I sitting on your money? It's not a sale. I didn't sell you anything. It has to be something.
Correct.
So the only other box it can go into is halva. Now,
but that's correct. That's why the Gemara calls it mechze kiribis. Exactly right. Because we are stuck. We're in a funny spot of spending. It has to be somewhere. That's what Rashi's. Why don't we just call it a mekach toes like anything else? So Rashi is a little funny about that. I saw that. Rashi is a little funny. Yeah, it's a little. I know. I understand the mechze kiribis part. Even if you say it's a mekach toes, I still could understand why you'd say mechze kiribis, because the transaction appeared.
Except that I handed you a house and you handed me back a house with a garage. Right. You know, that's what tax I think is bothering. Right. Exactly.
But I think what the Gemara is saying, the Gemara is saying is you're looking too granularly. Right. But the Gemara is saying we need to take it one step up and look at the money that changed hands.
Property.
Correct.
What is that money that I'm?
So then we just look at the money that changed hands. Correct. Even though there was a shvach, that's what Shmuel is bothered by.
I think that's right.
It is. It is. I think so also. If he creates damage in the house instead of shvach, so what happens? So then I owe 290 instead of 300. Who am I paying? No, hold on. No. Ruvain, who sold the house, that money will not go to him. He doesn't own the house. All that's happening with him is that he's giving me back my principal. I would never give the damages to Ruvain. Ruvain belongs in jail. This isn't even Ruvain's house. Or maybe I have to pay him. It's not grumma. It's not grumma. I mean, unless it was grumma. I'm just saying, like, if I take an X to it depends what you're doing. Obviously, if it's grumma.
And anything that happens after it would be the grumma. It's unclear if the house could have been a field, but.
We're assuming it's a house for argument's sake. It doesn't matter what it is, but either way, that wouldn't be a problem because the only monies that really need to be returned be'etzem is the 300 because he's a thief. Who's paying me for the shevach? Let's say according to Rav. Rav says I get paid shevach. Who's paying me for the shevach? Ruvain? It's not even Ruvain's house. He's a thief. We're going to discuss this issue a little bit later on the flip side. Okay. Anyways, so what is the shita of Shmuel? Does Shmuel say, well, had you told me about it up front, then the shevach would be included? Or do we say, no, it's mechze kiribis, and therefore it's not included? So to this, the Gemara says a quarter of the way down in Yudalat Amud Beis, in Vilav, the rafya biyade. These rare moments in Shas where there's a lack of clarity. Yes and no. I'm not really sure. That's how I feel all the time. That's what Rashi says halfway down. Tchila amar in, dibra maschil in Vilav. Halfway down. Tchila amar in, v'chazir amar lav, rafu yahaya davar v'yado, shelo haya yodat tamo shel davar yafeh. We really didn't know the sheet of Shmuel. We don't understand why it is that he held the way that he held. Okay. So then Itmar, then the Amoraim continue in this sugya. We had said, Itmar, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. So now we have the next generation. Rav Nachman was a Talmud of Shmuel. Let's see, the Gemara carries on. Let's see if we can get clarity in Shita Shmuel. The Gemara says, Ma'os yeshlo, shevach ein lo, afal pi shepiresh es shevach. So what is this saying? There were only two options with Shmuel. One was that he wasn't expressed about it, and the other is that's mechze kiribis. What does Rav Nachman say? Even if you express the shevach, you don't pay it, which means that Rav Nachman's answering our question. Rav Nachman is saying that there's a din of mechze kiribis in this case. So again, you sell me the house, you're a crook. You don't even own the house. You owe me my ma'os, but even if I then spent $20,000 to improve the house, added a garage, too bad, I'm out that money. Maybe the Gemara doesn't discuss this. Maybe the actual owner should pay me for it. Maybe, I don't know. That's not what our discussion is. Our question is what will Ruvain, the criminal real estate guy, what will he do? So that seems to be an answer. Rav Nachman has given us an answer. My taima, why is this the case? Says Rav Nachman. The reason why Shmuel was of the opinion that Shevach ein lo was because Kevan de Karka ein lo, so schar ma'osav omed v'notel. When we look at what happened, the schar ma'osav was omed v'notel. The money changed hands, and then it was given back. And because that's true, it's mechze kiribis. Okay, for the rest of the day, until the 10th line of Tes Vav Amud Aleph, we're going to be questioning this shita of Rav Nachman. That Rav Nachman says, Shevach ein lo. We're going to see a number of sources that seem to imply that Shevach is given back in this case, and let's get started. A third of the way down. First word on the line, Esvei, we have a brisa. Esvei Rava le Rav Nachman. Rava is still the next generation. So Shmuel was first, second. Rav Nachman was second, third. Rava was fourth. What did Rava say? Rava quotes a brisa. Ein motziin le'achilas peiros u'leshvach karkos u'lamazon ha'isha ve'habanos minachasim mishubadim mipnei tikun ha'olam. We don't collect for all of these things, for peiros and for shvach karka, food for a woman and her son. We don't do anything like this, minachasim mishubadim. We don't take them from properties that have a lien on them because of tikkun olam. We don't collect from properties that have been given out that have a lien on them. But mimishabde hu de lo mafkinan, the diuk is that we only don't pay out these items, and we'll discuss these items in more detail later, not today, but another day. That we don't collect from properties that are mishubadim. However, mibnei chorin mafkinan. We do collect from properties that are bnei chorin. The katanimia l'shvach karkos. And that also seems to be true, because what does the brisa say? One of the cases there is shvach karka, a case where a property has shvach now. It was worth 300, now it's worth 310. So the Gemara posits, my la belokech mi gazlan. Could it be that this brisa is talking about where Reuven the Gazlan sold a property to Shimon the innocent, and perhaps we see that there's shevach, because shvach karka can be paid from metaltalin. Therefore, we see perhaps that Rav Nachman, who said in the name of Shmuel that there is no shvach, maybe he's wrong, and we have a brisa that way. So says the Gemara, no, that's not correct. Lo, the balchov. Maybe that wasn't talking about our case. Maybe we were talking about a case of a balchov, and we weren't talking about a case of a gazlan. Perhaps the cases are totally different. Says the Gemara, well, halfway down, ibe balchov. If this brisa is talking about a balchov, a maresha, then in the beginning of this brisa that Rava brought against Rav Nachman, what does it say? Ein motziin lachi las peros. But peros are not something that a balchov gets. So the brisa can't be talking about a balchov. The ibe balchov mi isle pere. A balchov never gets peros. After all, Amar Shmuel himself said this. Balchov goves shvach in about peros lo. So the brisa, you want to say that the brisa is not talking about a gazlan, Ruvain who sold to Shimon the innocent. That's adorable, but it doesn't work. Because if you say that it's talking about a balchov, this brisa cannot be talking about a balchov. A balchov never gets peros. Ella, it must be pshita, but gozel v'nigzal. We must be talking about our case of Ruvain v'Shimon, Ruvain the gazlan, and Shimon, the one who is the innocent. Umi the reisha begozel v'nigzal. If the beginning of the brisa, which reads ein motziin lachilas peros, is talking about a gozel and a nigzal, seifanami begozel v'nigzal. Then the case of shvach karkos is also talking about a gozel v'nigzal. Gozel v'nigzal and the hadra kushila duchta. We're back in the same place. Rav Nachman, you wanted to say in Shmuel that there's no shvach, but this brisa says shvach karkos, and this brisa cannot be talking about a case of mekach umemkar, a case of balchov, and therefore must be talking about gozel v'nigzal, which means Rav Nachman, you're wrong about Shmuel. Shvach can be paid back from metaltalin. Says the Gemara, midi area. Does it have to be learned this way? The first line of the Gemara could be talking about whatever. It could be talking about Metzia. The second line could be talking about Gozel v'Nigzal. It could be talking about Balchov. That every single line has to be talking about the same exact case. Says the Gemara, that's not how the Brisa reads. L'shvach karkos ketzad. We don't have this here in our Gemara. I mean, we have it here, but we don't have it quoted above with the Brisa. But when we talk about shvach karkos, what do we say? We say explicitly that the case of shvach karkos is talking about gozel v'nigzal. Says the Gemara 2/3 of the way down. Haresha gozal sada michavero v'harehi yotza mitachas yado kshehu gove saker minachasim mishubadim v'shevach gove minachasim b'lechoren. We see black on white that the case of shvach karkos that we saw in the Brisa is talking about our case of Ruvain the Gazlan and Shimon the innocent, and we still see that shvach is collected. Rav Nachman has to be wrong about Shmuel. So says the Gemara, well, hold on. If you want to say it's like we've been saying that we're talking about the case of Gazlan, so then Gazlan, Miman Gavi, the guy who stole, who's he collecting from? He's not owed anything. The guy's a thief. What is he collecting? That doesn't even make sense. It must be it must be that I stole the property from one person and I sold it to my friend, and then he made it better. And that is against Rav Nachman yet again. You had to work to answer up this brisa. So taretz nami b'bal chov. I can wriggle out. It's not a geschmack answer, but if you had to work so hard to explain the brisa the way that you wanted to explain it, I'll just tell you that it's bal chov. Shalom al Yisrael. Leave it be. So it's not a question on Rav Nachman. Says the Gemara, Toshma, hold on 1 second. Let's try again. Gemara says as follows. Achilas peros ketzad. What is the case of achilas peros? This is the brisa that Rava brought 1/3 of the way down. Rava had said there against Rav Nachman, ein motziin la'achilas peros, that you're not allowed to pay for achilas peros from karkos mishubadim. Says the Gemara, ketzad, what's the case? 8 lines from the bottom. Haresha gazal sada michavero. So then, I steal a field from a friend. Veharei yotza mitachas yado, and then the field is taken. Ksho gova, when there's a collection, gova es haker min nechasim mishubadim. The care and the principal of the property is paid back from nechasim mishubadim. Uperos gova min nechasim bnei chorin, and fruits are collected from nechasim bnei chorin. Says the Gemara, hechidami, what's the case? If you want to say it's the case we were talking about where Ruvain, the Gazlan, stole from someone and sold it to Shimon the innocent, Gazlan miman gove. A Gazlan will never collect anything. That can't be pshat in the brisa. Elalav, the case of Achilas Peros must be and there too we see that there's shevach against Rav Nachman yet again. So here the Gemara provides three answers. These will be the final three things we learned today. The three answers as to how we know Rav Nachman is still correct about Shmuel. And let's just review the Chakira about Shmuel. Do we say that Shmuel holds that our Mishnah on Yud Beis and Yud Beis is always lo yachzir because every time there's a lack of achrayas, it's a toast sofer because of mechzei kiribis? Or do we say, no, it's not because of that. It's just because we never expressly said you'll collect the shvach. So then we said Rav Nachman said that it was because of mechzei kiribis, and then we brought a raya just now that perhaps Rav Nachman is wrong. Here are three answers as to why Rav Nachman is not wrong. Answer number one. A man steals a property from a friend. Malaya peros. And when he steals that property, it's filled with fruit. The Gazlan ate the fruit. And he was a real jerk and he started taking a shovel and digging holes and tunnels into the ground. Ba Nigzal, the guy who was actually stolen from, we haven't really spoken about him. We didn't say who Ruvain stole from. We said Ruvain stole and sold to Shimon. Ruvain stole from Chaim and sold to Shimon. So the Nigzal is Chaim. But Nigzal Ligvos Karen, he goes over to the Gazlan and says, you stole my property, you jerk. Govim nechasim mishubadim. Yet there he collects from nechasim mishubadim. Ba Nigzal Ligbos Peros, Govim nechasim b'nei chorin. So over here, the Gemara says, this is not a stira. Because Shmuel was talking about a case of an interaction, a payment between the Gazlan and the Lokeach, the innocent Lokeach, Shimon the innocent. But perhaps the Brisa is not even talking about Shimon the innocent at all. Perhaps what the Gemara is discussing is the payments between the Nigzal and the Gazlan, Chaim the Nigzal and Ruvain the Gazlan. Problem solved. And on the very last line of Yudal Amud Beis, Rabbi Bar Rav Huna Omar, he says the case is slightly different, though similar theme. Kigon shenataluha mesikin. Mesikin, Rashi says, is anosim akum. It's the mafia. And Ba Nigzal, the guy who was stolen, similar answer with slight differences. But Ba Nigzal ligbos Karen, Chaim comes to collect from Ruvain. And when he's collecting the principal, Govami nechasim mishubadim, Ba Nigzal ligbos Peros. And when Chaim, the Nigzal, comes to collect in Peros, he's Govami nechasim b'nei chorin. And these two shitas are very similar. Why is it that they disagreed with one another? We have Rava 4 lines from the bottom and Rabba Bar Rav Huna on the very bottom line. Why did they not agree to each other's shitas? The Gemara says, Rava on Tes Vav Amud Aleph, 3 lines down. Rava lo Amar ke Rabba Bar Rav Huna, because Harehi Yotza mitachas yado. The Brisa writes that the property was taken away, and that has an implication, Bedina Mashma, that it's going to be in Bezdin. And Virabba Bar Rav Huna lo Amar ke Rava, because when it says Harehi Yotza mitachas yado be'ena mashma, it implies that it's in the same state that it was before and not dug up like Rava wanted to say. So for slight reasons, they disagree with one another. And the final answer as to why Rav Nachman still might be correct about Shmuel, that really our whole concern over here is about mechzei kiribis. The Gemara says, Rav Ashi Amar litzdadin katani. There's 2 different cases going on over here. Kigon shegazal sada michaveiro malaya peros. Ruvain stole Chaim's field and it's filled with fruit. Ve'ochal esa peros. Ruvain the Gazlan ate all the fruits. Umachar esa sada, and he sells it to Shimon the innocent. Ba lokeach ligbos keren. Then the lokeach, Shimon the innocent, finds out that he's innocent. He finds out that he was innocent but was sold something bad. Ligbos keren. Govim minachasim mishubadim. But then, not ba Shimon, but Ba Nigzal Chaim then shows up, Ligbos Peros, Govamina Chasim B'nei Chorin, and therefore here too all 3 answers with a similar theme all seem to say that when we are trying to show that Rav Nachman still has a shita, that really Shmuel's concern is one of mechzei kiribis, That is all because this brisa isn't a problem. Why isn't this brisa a problem? Because all the paybacks we're discussing are not Shmuel's case. Shmuel was discussing interactions between the Gazlan and Shimon the innocent. But all three of these answers, Rava, Rabba bar Rav Huna, and Rav Ashi, were all talking about interactions between Ruvain the Gazlan and Chaim the Nigzal, and therefore no arguments against Rav Nachman. It must therefore be that Shimon is of the opinion that the reason why in our Mishnah we hold that no shtar chov that is found is ever returned is because we are concerned about mechzei keribis. We'll stop right here, and Emir Tashem tomorrow we'll pick up with Bein L'Rava, Bein L'Rabba, and 8-9 lines out on Tezvav and Aleph. And if Hashem loves us, and He does, Emir Tashem will learn a lot of Tez Zayin and Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful night.